We're going to figure out why some folks can vividly picture a super successful life, talk about it with total conviction, but then zero action. Stick around, because what's actually going on beneath the surface is really going to surprise you. So I want you to just think for a second. Have you ever met someone who is constantly talking about their grand ambitions? Like they're always going on about massive success, making serious money, living this completely different life. They see it so clearly, and honestly, they 100% believe they can pull it off. But then, year after year, nothing changes. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or let's just be super honest here, maybe you're recognizing a little bit of this pattern in yourself. You've got the vision, but you're just totally stuck. Now, the easy thing to do is look at this and go, oh, well, it's just laziness. They just don't want to work. But no, the reality is entirely different. Psychology tells us this isn't laziness at all. It's actually this deep psychological warfare happening right inside the brain. There are these hidden, subconscious reasons acting as like a misguided protector, keeping that person totally frozen. All right, let's start with the illusion of laziness. So what looks from the outside like a total lack of drive is actually the brain actively tricking itself. It's this wild cognitive glitch where your brain literally confuses thinking with progress. See, in psychology, vividly imagining success can actually give your brain a very real sense of achievement. When someone is constantly obsessing over their big goals, they're basically getting the emotional high of crossing the finish line without ever actually running the race. Your brain just can't tell the difference between the fantasy of progress and actual, tangible progress. Moving on to your brain's reward trap. Understanding how this works is absolutely crucial to figuring out why the planning phase becomes a permanent residence instead of, a stepping stone. Here's how the trap snaps shut. Step 1, you imagine success. You visualize the money, the amazing career, the whole lifestyle. Then, step 2, your brain releases a little hit of satisfaction. It's almost like you've already done the hard work, which leads us to the fatal step 3. Your urgency to act just totally drops. It's a cruel irony, right? The dopamine hit you get from just daydreaming about the goal literally destroys the drive you need to get up and do the work. You feel completely satisfied just thinking about it. Which brings us to paralysis by analysis. Because once that urgency drops, the mind starts looking for excuses to stay right where it is. And it does this through a pretty devastating mix of overthinking and deep, hidden fear. First off, there's this intense fear of risking your self-image. These folks don't lack ambition, not at all. They're just terrified of what happens if they actually try and fail. So to avoid that risk, what do? They start analyzing every single possible outcome, every little step, every potential roadblock. They convince themselves, oh, I'm just waiting for the right moment. But this constant heavy analysis, it completely drains their mental energy. By the time they should actually be taking action, they are mentally exhausted. They are literally too tired from thinking about the work to do the work. So they do nothing. There is such a profound truth here. As long as they don't try, their dream is still perfect. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This is the ultimate subconscious defense mechanism. If you stay in the planning phase forever, you never have to face reality. You never have to deal with rejection or setbacks or your own limitations. Inaction is literally a strategy to protect this flawless, pristine fantasy from the messy reality of actually trying. All right, let's get into the identity disconnect. This gets into another massive roadblock. The fact that our deepest, most secret beliefs about who we are can completely sabotage our progress. The reality is, taking action requires becoming someone different. Your brain naturally resists doing things that don't match how you view yourself. Like if someone secretly believes, I'm just not a disciplined person, or I never finish things, their brain is going to fight tooth and nail against any action that contradicts that negative self-image. It doesn't matter how big their dreams are, they're going to struggle to act. Because taking action means shedding that old identity and stepping into the total unknown of becoming someone new. This brings us addicted to potential. This is where the gap between who you are and who you could be becomes a super dangerous comfort zone. I mean, there is a stark contrast between talking and doing. Talking about big dreams, that feels exciting. It creates a sense of possibility and gives you this shiny identity of future success. It feels really good right now. But real progress is repetitive. It's slow. Honestly, it's often super boring and deeply uncomfortable. So instead of doing that hard, unglamorous work, people stay attached to the idea of who they could be. Why? Because the potential feels so much better than facing the uncomfortable reality of who they are right now. They basically become addicted to their own potential rather than putting in the effort to actually reach it. Let's pivot over to section 6, the action antidote. So how do we actually break this cycle? We've diagnosed the psychological warfare happening in the brain, but now we need to look at how to actually beat it. The key to unlocking this whole trap is this. Readiness often comes after action, not before. So many of us think we need to feel completely ready, totally prepared, and entirely fearless before we take step 1. But psychology shows us the exact opposite is true. Waiting for the perfect time is just a delusion because, spoiler alert, that perfect time never arrives. Action is the catalyst. Taking that first, messy, completely imperfect step is what actually generates the feeling of being ready. Ultimately, the core message of this explainer is this. Having big dreams isn't rare at all. Tons of people have them. But turning them into reality? That is rare. And the difference between the dreamers and the doers isn't about raw talent. It's simply the ability to act even when your own mind is working against you. It's pushing through that exhaustion of overthinking, abandoning the cozy comfort of your potential, and just doing the work despite your brain demanding a premature reward. Which leaves us with one final question. We know now that your brain naturally wants to keep your dream perfect, safe and sound in your imagination. It wants to protect you from failure and discomfort. But knowing that, what are you going to do? Will you choose the slow, repetitive, uncomfortable work required to pull that dream out of your head and actually make it real today? Breaking the cycle starts with one real action. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the push you need to start doing.